Get my
Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Let's Talk Draft. A lot has happened since the last time we recorded. For those that didn't see our prior episode, we recorded that one a little early. That one was pre-recorded. This one's absolutely live. But from the last time we went, Frankie, so much has happened with the Broncos.
So much
but
has
before
happened.
we get into anything here, I want to ask you, how are you doing, man?
I'm doing pretty good. It's a whole new year, guys. Whole new year. 2023 is upon us. Hopefully we'll see a little bit of a different Denver Broncos this year, but doing pretty well. Holiday season is over. We're officially past the mark where you can say Happy New Year to people. That's you only get 3 days. Solid. I think that's a Seinfeld joke, but yeah, doing well. How are you?
I'm doing good. I am I'm also pretty excited that the holidays are over. I mean, they're fun. Don't get me wrong. I enjoy all of it. My work's a little rough through the holidays, and it's just so busy. Like, I'm ready for the wind down here where I can really start focusing on the NFL draft and all the offseason stuff for the Broncos and just get into that type of stuff. I love it. But today, Frankie, we're going to be talking about edge rushers. We're going to be talking about the NFL draft, obviously, what edge rushers we like. We're going to be talking some of the best ones in this draft class. And yeah, but first, let's discuss why it's a need for the Broncos.
Yeah.
Frankie, why is edge rusher a need for the Broncos? Can you highlight some players maybe on the Broncos roster now?
So the Denver Broncos, as it currently stands, just don't really have reliable options in the edge room, as sad as it is to state. I think Randy Gregory is an immensely talented player that we just haven't gotten to see enough of on the field for us to really pencil him in as someone, that I think we can get 16 games out of. Who knows if we can even get 10 games out of him, as sad as it is to state. I think on the other side, you got Baron Browning, who is a whole bucket of potential, has really flashed a lot in the pass rush game and, shows impressive bend and explosiveness and does all these fun, cool things. But I'm not even going to say a little bit. He's very lacking in the run game. I don't think he's kind of someone that you can rely on to be a starter or at least a high level starter. I don't know if he's even an average level starter at this point. Since we've seen Bradley Chubb leave, who was, the cornerstone of that pass rushing room, who was the cornerstone of that run defense on the edge, we just haven't really seen the same production out of any of those guys in the rotation. I think Baron Browning thrived being able to rotate in and out, and in that starting rotation just hasn't gotten to do it as well. Nick Bonito was a guy coming out that was going to be a pure pass specialist with the fact that he's a little bit undersized. And, I think even for being a second-round pick, I think he's been pretty underwhelming this year, if not a straight-up disappointing, And then probably the guy that you can say is straight-up the most reliable and comparable to their draft position the best, I think Jonathan Cooper is a guy that actually has shown that, you can rely on him in special teams, and he actually plays the run pretty well, and he has some juice in the pass rush game. But, I mean, that's the list of them right there, guys. And, I mean, when you look at it, I don't think you can hope for any of these guys to be, even close to, double-digit stacks next year. I don't think any of these guys are going to be, 40-plus pressure guys, and that's not even getting into the fact that I think most of them are liabilities in the run game. So what do you think, Joey?
I won't put a ceiling on them, but I also won't put a floor on them. That's the way I feel. I see a big fat question mark on our edge room right now. I think all of them are supremely talented. Specifically, I want to highlight Randy Gregory and Baron Browning. Both of those guys, to me, supremely talented. I think their ceilings both very high. They can do things that could solidify this edge room a lot more. Both of them have the potential to do it. But also, now you have to look at injuries have been an issue for both of those guys, massively. Randy Gregory even more, and he has a much bigger contract. Baron Browning's dealt with it too. For how much hope I have for it, it's hard for me to say that this room is even close to being solidified because, I mean, if the Broncos want to win next year, you're going to at least have some sort of stability in the room. And right now there's none. You highlighted Nick Bonito. I also think that it's a little, I won't say it was a bad pick by any means yet, but rookie season has been a disappointment.
Yeah.
I thought when he was drafted, he would be a pass rush specialist. Now that's kind of the role that he's working himself into, I think. That's the role that you want him to play. But at the end of the day, he hasn't shown enough pass rush for me to say this guy can be a solid second round pick as a pass rush specialist, because I don't want to discount that pass rush specialist role. That like if you are out there getting a ton of pressure consistently as a pass rush specialist, there's still a lot of value there. Nick Bonito just hasn't shown me enough this year to be like, oh yeah, like he can fill that for sure. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, and it's really disappointing too, because like Ejiro Evero, all year we've talked about it, is incredible at getting these guys into one-on-one situations. He seems to really thrive at putting guys in their best position to succeed, and we just haven't really seen a spot where Bonito is playing that well. I think, honestly, some of his best reps have been when he's dropping. Like, it's kind of weird to say, like, he's a little bit better at playing in space so far than I think he is at actually like coming after the passer. But like, right, man, it's genuinely disappointing, especially when you look at some of the other guys that were picked right next to them. Like Drake Jackson was a guy that I think I had like a tier or two above him, and that I'd say my like draft rankings for edge specialists. I mean, I think he just got another sack recently for San Francisco. He's looking pretty good, where it's kind of like, you know, it's a definite need. And I don't think there's any one guy that you can say next year is going to be able to give you like a double-digit slate of productive games confidently.
No, for sure. But okay, cool. I think we established why it's a need. I think we both agree here that it's because the Broncos don't have anybody that you can mark home and say, this is an elite edge rusher. That is at such a position of need, correct? So now that we've established that, I want to hop into the actual players in this NFL draft. And let's start off right from the jump. Maybe the Broncos don't have a chance at this guy. They definitely won't have a chance on this guy.
They won't have a chance at this guy.
Supremely talented pass rusher out of Alabama, Will Anderson. Frankie, this is a pass rusher that obviously I think a lot of people thought he could have been the first draft pass rusher taken in last year's draft. Tell me about him. Tell me about why Will Anderson is so good.
Will Anderson is explosive. He's long. He's bendy. He really just does everything that you want out of a superstar edge rusher. Like he's genuinely probably one of the best pass rushing prospects since like Von Miller. You know, like he just plays so well off the edge. He is so fast. I think he's a little bit undersized, but that's not necessarily a bad thing. He's kind of one of those guys that you see play with enough power and kind of he's so lanky. His arms are just like so long, and his technique is great. Really good hand fighter. Twitchy. I mean, there's really not enough you can say about him. Last year, he probably should have won the Heisman as a defensive player. You know, I think he had 82 pressures. He had 82 pressures in 2021. He had to come back this year. He still managed to put up, I believe, 59 or 50 pressures this year when everyone knows who this guy is. This guy's getting double teamed relentlessly. So much attention is paid to him. He gets chipped. He gets ran away from. He still generates pressures. He runs down plays from the backside. He's going to end up he's probably people are going to say he's probably the best player in this draft. You know, obviously the value quarterback brings might have quarterback selected above him, but I think he's probably one of the safest pick. You know, people are going to argue about Jalen Carter maybe too, but I think when you look at position value, you know, and what you've seen from this guy over a long period of time, the past couple of seasons, I don't think there's a better home run prospect than Will Anderson. He's incredible.
He is incredible. He's, like I said when I started this off, I think Will Anderson, if he were to come out of last year's draft, he would have been the number one edge rusher taken. He is a true number one edge rusher. We've seen guys like this in the past where, you know, Frankie mentioned Von Miller when he came out, Myles Garrett's a name, like these type of guys, and it's so clear that they're the best edge in the class. Will Anderson fits that bill perfectly. You mentioned a little undersized he is. I have him at 6'4", 243 is the height and weight I have on him, but he has really good length. And then at that size, he has really good play strength. Like it's not like
a powerful guy.
He is. It's not like a huge issue. Now, obviously going to the next level, these tackles are a different breed. But he's playing at Alabama in the SEC where you're going to get the closest thing to it. You know what I mean? You're going to get the closest thing. So he has that. He's very, very explosive, both vertically and laterally. Hand usage, very advanced. He has a ton of pass rush moves to his arsenal. He might swim. He might spin. He has a cross chop. Like he has so many different pass rush moves going on. I guess, Frankie, I want you to highlight, because you were earlier on this, than I think most. What are some of the negatives, and why isn't he like a perfect prospect?
So,
he's really, really good, but why isn't he perfect?
All right. And people are going to hear this, and I don't want anyone to like knock Will Anderson or think that like I'm crazy. Will Anderson is very, 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 very good. But there is just like the little bit of a kink to his game, if you will. He fails a little bit to bring down players sometimes. He's not the most efficient tackler. He's not the cleanest tackler. Doesn't always finish plays as perfectly as he can. He's had over 10 missed tackles in the past 2 seasons. I think he has 36 missed tackles throughout his career. And when he gets to quarterbacks, again, he's one of those guys that he is going to beat the tackle clean and he's going to do it really impressively. But just sometimes against some of these stockier guys in the pocket, he just fails a little bit to bring him down. And we saw that, I think, against Tennessee a couple times. We saw Hendon Hooker able to escape him and just kind of, get a pass downfield where, again, getting pressures on the quarterback is never a bad thing. He's just, from what I saw, he's not necessarily the greatest at converting pressures into sacks. Now, are you going to take a guy who's putting out pressures at such an absurd rate like Will Anderson as high as you will? Yes, you will, because he's still that talented and he's still incredibly good. But there is that light little knock on him that I think, you do want to see him kind of clean up on a little bit when he gets to the league, because we do have such elite scramblers and guys that are able to stand in like the Josh Allens and the Justin Fields, these guys that, 30 years ago would have been playing inside linebacker but are now playing quarterback. Like, these guys are hard to bring down. So I hope that Will Anderson is able to kind of, clean that up a little bit and just be able to convert as many of these pressures into sacks as possible, because he is a special talent at getting to the passer.
Yeah, Frankie, I totally agree with you. Missed tackles and missed opportunities is a big deal with him.
That's the great way to put it, yeah.
Yeah, but at the end of the day, I totally agree with your other point in that it shouldn't deter you. Like, if you were talking about a guy that is so hard to find negatives with, like, this is the obvious one, but outside of it, it's like you're getting really picky. You're getting really, really picky on like where can he improve? Like, he can obviously get a lot better, but what is his weakness, I guess, is the way I would say it. It's hard. It's really, really hard to point that out.
No, and I mean, one thing that like I'd say the thing that I think impressed me the most about him is just like, this guy gets so much attention paid to him, and I've never seen a guy be so good at splitting double teams, just getting skinny in between blocks, like he's really good at it. Again, the size thing for, I think, a lot of other guys plays a bit more of a factor, but he plays violent enough and he almost uses it as a weapon to just kind of like make him harder to get a hand on, like it just gives people a smaller target. So Will Anderson is incredible, elite player, as you can see in the corner, that corner, not this corner. Sadly, he is probably going to end up in a uniform that could have been a Denver one if they still had their first pick. So hopefully, he has a great time in Seattle, Houston, Detroit, wherever he ends up going. Ooh,
that drive you insane, man?
It drives you a little insane. And it's almost like, obviously the third pick's gonna drive you crazy, but it's really that second round pick, that 35th overall pick. So many good players are always available in that range. That's always like, those top 5 picks can almost be a little scary because you expect them to work out, but like, oh, what if they don't? Man, that 30 range, it seems like you really get just like the solidified stars almost every single time. I don't know what it is. Those like mid-30s picks, it's always the guys that slipped out of the first because people like didn't like their position or something.
Yep. And okay, so we nailed down Will Anderson. I think everybody knows Will Anderson, right? It doesn't take too much detail for you guys. I don't feel like I'm explaining anything new. You know what I mean? But we're going to move from one smallish edge rusher to a even smaller edge rusher, Georgia's Nolan Smith. Now, a lot like Will Anderson, for my powerhouse of a football school. Frankie, tell me about Nolan Smith. You were messaging me about him. I was talking to you about him a little before the show. And yeah, I want your opinion. Let the people know how you feel about Nolan Smith.
Nolan Smith is a really like bendy rusher, like genuinely. He just kind of does a lot of unorthodox pass rushes that are really fun to watch. And he's also just a very violent physical player, which I really like. Violent. He's a little bit undersized at 235, like Joey said, but I mean, he plays like an absolute missile, and he's just got a very strong base. He knocks dudes back, and he's just a player to look out for. He did tear his pectoral muscle in week 9 or week 10, I believe. So that will definitely kind of maybe knock him down some boards. He didn't get to have as productive of a senior season as he would have liked to, or whatever season he's in. I don't know if he's a senior. He ended up getting 19 pressures, though, on like 104 pass rush snaps to start the year. And that is ridiculous. Like that percentage-wise is ridiculous. Like, that's very good. And this is a guy that's obviously playing in the SEC. He's going up against elite talent. And I mean, Nolan Smith is just awesome. He's been a vital part of that Georgia defense. We saw kind of, I don't want to say a struggle because they were still obviously Georgia for the rest of the year, and still are. But we did kind of see their pass rush kind of like stumble a little bit as soon as he went out. He's such a massive part of their game plan. And I mean, he's just a great player, really fun prospect who's been playing at a high level for them for more than 1 year now. And right, you really can't have enough of these Georgia defenders as we saw last year. I mean, they're all just so talented and well coached by Kirby Smart.
Yeah. So, interesting note, Nolan Smith is the leader of that Georgia defense. That's something I want to point out there because there are so many just flat out dogs on that Georgia defense between last year and this year. And from everything you hear, Nolan Smith is the guy that gets everybody riled up. And no one has anything bad to say against Nolan Smith. He was on the field as the team captain in their last game hurt. For the coin flip. Like, he's that type of guy. He's always firing people up, and he's the exact type of guy you want in your locker room from everything you hear. So that's really good. I love that from Nolan Smith, especially on a defense like that. You mentioned he is a little smaller. He's 6'3", 235. He doesn't have great length either. I don't think he has fantastic length. I think he is okay. I don't think he has great length, though. The thing that I love about him the most is at 6'3", 235, you think you kind of know what you have there, right? It's like, okay, he's going to go maybe be a pass rush specialist. He's going to come in on third downs. He's going to be that type of guy. Nolan Smith doesn't run from any smoke. He doesn't run from any smoke whatsoever. Physical, and a hustler. His motor runs hot, fiery hot. And I just love that from him. Like, his base really impressed me for a guy at his size. It shocked me. Like, you could tell he's a really dense person because the way he's able to just fight with people, like, he dominates tight ends easily. Like, that's light work for him. And yeah, I really liked him. I thought that the best part of his game in college was his run defense. And I thought that he needed more help in the past was my takeaway from Nolan Smith. Frankie, do you agree with that statement or you somewhat disagree?
I'd say I somewhat disagree, but like maybe different games, different time. I think it's kind of a question of, I think he benefited from playing on the Georgia defense that helped him kind of be able to play so well in the run game. But I do agree that he is such a physical player that no matter what, he's just able to kind of take on blockers as well as anybody. But I mean, man, from what I saw in the pass game, like, this is a guy that just has a lot of different rushes to his kit, and that was something that I always like to see. When you have a guy who's able to kind of reliably do a bunch of different moves, I thought his cross chop was really good. I thought he had a bunch of really good rips. He does like a lot of like skip hop steps, like he does a lot of cool things around the corner that just allow him to get leverage and just kind of beat tackles that, like, I think he's actually a very, like, I don't want to say a refined pass rusher, but a decently refined pass rusher. I know Broncos fans, Nick Benito coming out last year was, I think, kind of the body type I'd say you can compare Nolan Smith to. But man, when you look at Nolan Smith, like, he's just such a more complete player in my mind. Yeah. Like, I really like Nolan Smith. I think he's going to end up being, depending upon how limited he is in testing and stuff, I think he ends up being a first round talent. But I mean, yeah, I like him a lot. I think he just has the kind of stuff that, like, that coaches look to kind of develop and stuff. He has so much to kind of work with already. I don't think his length is an issue, but like you said, he's not overly long, but he has so much so much explosiveness and bend to his game that, like, I'm really not too worried. I'm excited to see what he does at the next level.
Yeah, Frankie. And that's where you haven't even mentioned Nolan Smith. I think, like, he was a 5-star recruit coming out of high school, and he lived up to that athleticism 100%. Like, that was not something that we were disappointed by. The guy is really, really, really athletic, specifically when he's coming downhill. I think that was a really big point. And he does have good bend too. Like, those are all points that Nolan Smith has going for him to go along with, like, you just can't. One thing you can't teach NFL players, you can't coach it into them, is just like how hard they're going to try or if they love physical contact. And those are two things that Nolan Smith, like, really, really exceeds in. I guess that's just my final point there. But do you have anything left to say on Nolan Smith before we move on to the next guy?
I completely agree. Just to reemphasize your point, this is a guy that's not going to be out there playing for a paycheck. This is a guy who plays very hard on every single snap and just runs everything down. Like you said, Nolan Smith's kind of the type of football player you want to have on your football team, just from emotional mentality standpoint.
All right, Frankie. So moving on to the next one here. This guy, bigger than the rest of those two. Out of the University of Notre Dame, Isaiah Foskey, standing at 6'5", 260 pounds. I know we're going to disagree a little bit here, so I'm excited for this one.
Yeah.
Frankie, what is your opinion on him? Do you like him? Do you not like him? Where would you feel comfortable taking him, etc.?
So I think Foskey is okay. I think he does a really good job generating speed to power. I think he's got a great long arm. I think he's just a little bit limited as a pass rusher for what I want to see. This is kind of funny. It looks like he's picking my nose a little bit, so I'm gonna scooch a little bit. But like he's a really powerful dude. He's got a lot of strength in his game that I really enjoy seeing on tape. But he's a great player against the run. But man, I didn't see a lot of bend around a corner, and I didn't see a lot of like ability to get low and beat tackles underneath the edge. And I'm just kind of like, I don't know. To me, I think that there are better prospects in this class that are more powerful and larger, if that's kind of your cup of tea that you're trying to go for, like I think Foskey is. And I think that there are, if you want kind of this all-around guy that can kind of do everything for you, I just don't know if that's necessarily him too much.
Interesting. Yeah. Okay. So for me, I'm looking at a really, really impressive athlete. If you were to line up all the edge rushers we had right now and you ask me which one I think is the best without seeing him have played yet, I would definitely say Foskey, standing at 6'5", 260, like I said earlier. And he is a really good athlete. I want to make sure that is definitely said. He's a really good athlete with really good acceleration too. Like his stop and start, it's not his stop and start, but his ability to go 0 to 100, I think is really impressive. The three words I wrote down were long, explosive, powerful. Those are three things that are his game as a pass rusher, right? And then, so he has all the tools in my mind. He has all the tools that I would want out of him. Then you have to include how versatile he is and how much Notre Dame moves him around that defense. I'm not just talking about like he might stand up over a center every once in a while and pass rush from there. He might. I'm not just saying that. Notre Dame might throw him at off-ball linebacker. You know what I mean? Like he's literally everywhere. And at off-ball linebacker, he's shown good things. So I think he does have that versatility to be moved with from position to position. And it's interesting with the Broncos in particular to me. They just drafted Nick Bonito. Is a inside linebacker kind of hybrid with an outside linebacker. Really good in space, can get after the quarterback guy. Baron Browning, same thing, obviously having played inside linebacker and edge. Foskey, to me, is like a superside version of this, where I think that he could potentially hold up in the run, as well as do some of this versatility stuff that you like from them, and much bigger. And I think he has more potential just as a 3-down player, if that is your cup of tea there.
So I almost wonder, I think the more I think about it, I think I'd almost prefer Foskey playing as like a full-time 3-tech. Like if he just like fully bulked.
Really?
Yeah, like as crazy as that might sound, I think that's almost where I'd want to see him go. Because I think he's just like, I don't know, man. As we've seen from the tape, he's so good at rushing over guards, and I think he plays the run better from there as well, that I almost wonder if that's an option that we see some NFL teams try to make him do. That's my spice of the day. That's Frankie's spice.
I don't know. I think he's too good in space to be doing that. I want to utilize him in space. I want him out of a 2-point stance. I want him with the ability.
I didn't love him playing out of a 2-point too much. I thought he was so much better playing with a hand in the dirt.
Wow. So we completely wow.
Yeah.
We disagree on this one.
The pod's over, guys.
He's much better out of a 2-point stance player. Wow. He has a good long arm, like you said. I think that his bend and his flexibility in his ankles isn't like fantastic, where he's like turning.
It's stiff. He's straight up stiff.
There a little bit.
He wins with his hands straight, but like he's just standing up, walking around, and like that's just my only thing.
All right, but we can't act like there isn't multiple ways to get after the passer here, Frankie. We can't. There's plenty of players in the NFL that don't win off of bend. They win in other ways.
That's completely fair, but I think. I don't know. I don't think he's going to have as successful as a time winning around the edge in the NFL compared to the opponents he's gotten to face a lot this season.
Okay. So what I wrote down as his weaknesses, Frankie, so I'll give you some stuff here. I disagree on your evaluation, but I'll give you some stuff. I thought he was stiff at his ankles. I thought his hands could be late with initial contact sometimes. And I thought he could get washed down in the run a little bit, but had the potential to be really good in the run. That's kind of what I wrote down. Then also his processing sometimes, like he gets really stuck down on different.
He's not good at reads. He was pretty bad against playing like read option stuff. Anytime there was anything that was kind of like, oh, there's a lot of eye candy, he would. Yes, I had that written down as well. Actually,
totally
he gets tripped up on a lot of that stuff.
So that's what I have. I don't know.
The perfect guy you'd want playing off the edge, you know.
I also want to say in the run with his athleticism, he has a ton of range. He could go chase somebody from one side to the other. And like I was literally watching him make plays at inside linebacker that were impressive if I were watching an inside linebacker prospect. Okay, I feel like this isn't anything you value. Is this just like not something that you value that much?
Like actual ability to drop, or like his ability to like play gaps?
Like there's an ability to like play in space, I guess is what I would say.
A little bit, but like not much, I guess. Especially for like, I don't think NFL teams are going to use him that way. I think they're going to see like his power and his size, and they're just going to want to stick him in the trenches the entire time. I'm sure he'll drop once in a while, but like, was I watching him being like, oh man, like I don't think he has I don't think he has ridiculous range by any means. I think he has okay range
for a pass rusher. I think it's really good.
But like, right, exactly. Like, but like, that's pretty relative, you know. Like,
but like, okay, but you see a guy like Kyle Van Noy make a career off of this.
Okay, but no, I don't think he's like that level either. I don't think he shows that good of chops, you know, to be able to like read out coverage or to read out like routes and stuff.
I don't know. It's just like he definitely has that potential to be doing that. Like you've seen it be good. I'm not putting a ceiling on how good he can get at it because I've seen like he has all the natural ability to do it. I don't know. We're gonna have to agree to disagree on Foskey.
I hate Isaiah Foskey. Isaiah Foskey shit. There you go. I have laid the sword down. Not actually.
All right. So this is a player that you love. I haven't watched him yet. Oh, wait, go.
I got one. So would you take Isaiah Foskey with a first-round pick? If Denver, I guess for Denver, would you use their first-round pick?
It depends. It depends who's on the board. I would rather have him in the second. I think that's where I would rather have him. That's where I'm going to grade him out. If like, I don't know. I really have to have a better understanding of this whole class, but I think that, and also I wouldn't, like I would obviously love an offensive player in most circumstances, like an offensive lineman if one was comparable. But I would say the second round would be my preferred area to draft him.
Yeah, and I got one last point on Foskey. He's kind of the reverse Will Anderson. He has like 23 sacks over the last 2 seasons on only 65 pressures. He converts pressures into sacks at an absurdly heavy rate. He kind of finishes everything. He hits quarterbacks pretty hard, so that's pretty cool. So yeah, that was my last note.
Okay.
Not a huge pressure player. Another thing to knock on him.
Damn, I'm going to be posting the clips tonight. It's going to be tonight.
We're out.
Keep an eye out for the Isaiah Foskey clips tonight. At Frankie in the comments. It's at Frankie Films. No, let's move on to a play. Let's move on to a player Frankie loves. We're going to go from a player Frankie doesn't really like to a player that he absolutely loves. And I haven't watched this guy yet. Another player I'm going to watch tonight. It's kind of a shame I haven't really, but I've just been so busy. Tyree Wilson. Big pass rusher. Right up your alley, Frankie. Tell the people why you love his game so much.
Tyree Wilson is a certified goblin. I wish I had a green goblin mask to pronounce this. For anyone who doesn't know, maybe a goblin, maybe more an ogre might be a better like stance on it. He is just a massive hulking human. He's 6'6", 275 pounds. He hits like an absolute freight train, okay? This guy knocks tackles on their asses. He knocks guards on their asses. He knocks running backs on their asses, and he knocks quarterbacks on their asses. It's a lot of asses getting knocked over by Tyree Wilson. He's a physical presence. He can rotate inside. He can rotate outside. You know, he's super explosive off the snap. Probably my favorite attribute about him is his ability to play in the run game. He kind of reminds me a lot of Bradley Chubb in that aspect where, like, he just gladiator techs over guards and tight ends that are trying to run at him and makes them look like cowards, and then just absorbs running backs with his massive frame. And I mean, yeah, like there's just not much I can say about him that I don't love. He just has really all the traits I love. I think he's so big, so strong, so fast. There's a little bit of ankle mobility in there to put him a little bit over Foskey. And he's just a really fun player. He can line up at all the different spots, got a lot of multiplicity to his game, and just an absolute demon. He had 59 pressures this year for Texas Tech. He got to do a lot of pass rushing in the Big 12 and just an awesome, awesome talent. If you want to go watch a guy knock the heck out of some people, go watch Tyree Wilson for an afternoon because that's all he does. He hits quarterbacks hard. I literally have a note down that he is probably going to get a few roughing the passers when he comes into the league. He genuinely needs to probably chill out a little bit because you'll see like the Texas QB get a ball out and then he's just like straight up clotheslining the guy with just this massive elbow and just putting a guy 6 yards into the dirt. And Tyree Wilson, he's an absolute goblin. And I think very, very hot take, but I don't want people to like get buried about this. I think there's going to be a team or two that might have Tyree Wilson over Will Anderson just because of the frame and the type of player that they might be looking for. I think he's kind of one of those, like, I don't want to say like Trayvon Walker, but the physical attributes are just it's enticing for a lot of teams.
Okay, so you mentioned he's a really big guy. He stands at 6'6" and he weighs 276 pounds. Frankie, what are some negatives that you want to highlight for Tyree Wilson? Why isn't he being talked up as much as some of these other people?
I don't think he plays as much with his hands as he should be. Like, I don't think he necessarily is as technical as a rusher as you'd like to see. He really kind of relies on his physical dominance, which is obviously something you can't really do too much in the NFL unless you're like a one-of-one athlete, which I don't think he is that. I think he's kind of a guy that you're going to need to see kind of get a little more work, like I said, in the pass game and just kind of learning how to kind of beat, the standard of like actual fast edges. I think playing in the Big 12 benefited him a lot. He's getting to go up against a lot of eventual retail salesmen and eventual insurance salesmen, whereas guys like Will Anderson are facing, NFL talents. I'd say that's a little bit of a knock. I'd say the roughing the pass is the thing, like I said, is a little bit of a knock. Just like I said, he has a little bit to clean up to his game. He's not clean. He's not like the cleanest prospect or the most technical, but I mean, just a physical beast, man. I think teams are going to really like that and see a guy that they can kind of mold.
Okay. I get that. Yeah. I get that. Where would you feel comfortable, you think, taking a player like
top 15? I would take him top 15. I think he's that caliber of player that he can change a defense. And I think he kind of, one thing I really like about him as well, and I mean, it kind of is a lot like the Nolan Smith point where I think he's kind of the right mentality. He kind of sets an edge to your defense. He brings he's going to liven up the boys and spark up the entire side of the ball. So I think he's a top 15 prospect.
Okay. Interesting, Frankie. I like that. Like I said, I'm going to watch him tonight. I have one last player I want to highlight. I know you haven't watched a ton of them, but I'm going to get into it. We didn't have a graphic made because we don't
have a graphic made
back early enough.
These are not him.
Yeah, these are not him. But I'm going with Andre Carter out of Army. Which, hey, don't scout helmets, right? There's not a lot of NFL players that come out of Army, but Andre Carter definitely has the athleticism to do so. He's around 6'7", 260 pounds. Absolute unit. Like not I wouldn't say unit actually, just lengthy player. Very, very lengthy, right? Long arms. And so when you're thinking of a player like this, I'm sure you're thinking of, he's probably really good in the run. He probably can, he's probably not very mobile. He's probably kind of stiff. He throws all that out the window and plays the exact opposite of what you'd think. Super productive last year, not so much this year, which I think this year is more indicative of what you get from an Andre Carter. He has a ton to work on, but physical traits, guys, he's a freak. Like, simply put, 6'7", 260 shouldn't move like he can. They shouldn't. He moves that well, like bending corners, different things. He's a finesse pass rusher. Like that's his game.
Which is absurd at his size.
Yeah, it's just absurd. Like the natural talent with the long arms and all of that is absurd. Another interesting fact about him, he's a converted wide receiver and tight end, which kind of leads you to why he is so raw. And I'll get into that here in a second. I have some notes on like he's raw in a ton of areas, but like I said, very, very intriguing athlete. I said he has so much to work on. Super light lower half. He's going to have to get in the NFL, probably be relegated to a pass rush specialist early on, where he still has work to do as a pass rusher. He just does not have the lower half to hold up in the run at this point. He doesn't. Players not like Nick Bonito. Nick Bonito suffers in the lower half and he gets pushed around. Andre Carter doesn't just suffer in the lower half. He's also a massive target. So people can really get under his pads easy, and he gets washed around. He does. He just gets washed around.
Mm-hmm.
And then I also have, he doesn't have a huge pass rush arsenal. He has some go-to moves he uses, and it works a lot. He has like a little Euro, get to make the offensive lineman stutter, go around with straight line speed. He wins a ton off of athleticism, honestly. Yeah, and then that's kind of what I have. A lot to work with his hands, light lower half, easy for people to get under his pads. If you name it, he probably has to work on it, but super, super intriguing athlete.
Mm-hmm. Was he a guy Army used at all to drop it all, like in coverage, or did he ever rotate inside?
Okay. Every once in a while he would, and he looks comfortable in space. He's also like those long arms. He does get his hands in passing lanes.
That's an exciting thing to see, definitely, especially if he gets to face against Russ or anything.
Yeah, exactly.
Or passes in the game.
No doubt about it.
Right.
That's a great point. But yeah, I think that's kind of. Do you have any other honorable mentions before?
So there's a few honorable mentions, honestly, because I feel like there's a lot of pass rushers that can kind of work their way into that first round. I have just like a list of guys that I want to mention, so people have kind of these names in their minds, but we won't necessarily get to touch on. I know Miles Murphy is a guy out of Clemson. A lot of people are saying is going to be like a top 10 pick. I've heard he's got a great arsenal of pass rush moves. He's another guy that's really big at I want to say he's another guy that's like 275 pounds, but I honestly don't know off the top of my head. Jared Verse is a guy that I've seen lighting it up all year for FSU. Absolutely incredible talent. Probably one of the best pure, if you're looking for a technician in the pass rush game, from what I've seen from him, absolutely electrifying talent. There was the rumor that on the final play of their bowl game, he said that the tackle said something to him like, "You're not getting this one," and he beat him instantly and got the game-winning sack or something. Cool talent. He's pretty good. There's Felix Anudike Uzoma from Kansas State. A lot of people say he might be the second best rusher in this class. I know Matt Miller had mentioned him. He's a guy that I haven't actually gotten to look a lot at because I don't have a lot of Kansas State tape. Will McDonald's a guy I've been in love with for the past couple of years, but to be honest, he had a very disappointing season. I don't think he has 20 pressures yet, so I've been a little bit bummed by him. I want to be like, what's up, Will McDonald? I thought you were going to be that guy this year. Hasn't really been that guy. Who else we got? BJ Ojulari is another really talented pass rusher off the edge.
Very talented.
Really, really explosive player. A lot of bend there. Zach Harrison is a super powerful guy out of Ohio State. Probably one of the best long arms, one of the better speed to powers in the entire class. I think he's a guy that will probably end up being like a top 50 pick.
Smart man.
Dude, there's so many. That's the thing. This is a deep edge class, I'd say, and I think that's a big thing that'll play into Denver possibly looking towards one of these guys in their first round. As crazy as that might sound to all the fans who are like, oh, they need a tackle, they need a center, they need a receiver, they need a quarterback, they need a running back, they need every position in the book. Guys, they just let go of very, very, very talented and very important piece of their edge rush room. They really need a piece, and there are not a lot of talented pieces on the free agent market in the edge rush department that are going to be able to be acquired at a reasonable price. Where if it comes down to it, and one of the guys we've talked about in this episode, if a guy somehow Nolan Smith or Isaiah Foskey is available at pick 23 to 28, wherever they end up getting to select, they could very easily be the best player on the board and aren't a bad selection at all when you look at the room as a whole, because at least for some of these bigger guys I like the Miles Murphys, like the Tyree Wilsons, like the Foskeys, they need an early down edge setter in the run game. I think a lot of time edge can be looked at as purely a pass rush position when we've really seen what has happened the past month or a couple months in Denver without having Bradley Chubb, who was the best run defender in that room. Now you're left with a lot of guys who should be pure pass rush specialists, and they're getting absolutely eviscerated on the ground. So I think it's a pretty big need for them, and I wouldn't be shocked to see them consider that pretty heavily if there's a decent option on the board.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. It's really hard to predict who will be on the board the later you get into the draft. It's hard. There could just be the best players could be edge rushers, the defensive linemen of some sort. It could be a safety. That could be the best players available at that pick. You can't trade down. You're going to would you rather do that or take a massive reach? Like, you would rather take the best player available, especially at edge where it does look like it could still be considered a need, right?
Yeah.
As much as I would like an offensive player, sometimes the cookie just doesn't crumble like that. You have to take the position that is there to take.
And I'd say a big thing too is like 5 years of cross control, man. 5 years of cross control at the edge position is massive in today's NFL. It's massive in today's NFL. You'll be saving money for a long time. Like, there's a lot of positions that matters for. Like, receiver is going to be pretty important coming up, corner too. But like, if you can have an edge on a rookie contract like we just had with Chubb for like 5 years and was pretty okay, it was looking like it was going to be kind of cool. Maybe we keep him around. Oh, never mind. Rug pulled. But yeah.
Well, cool. Awesome, guys. Well, I think that's all we have for today. Again, I want to say that these are our very early thoughts on these guys. I for one, I feels like there's just not a ton of film right now. Like, I'm part of like 3 databases and I'm struggling to find film on everybody. So takes may change as we go on into this thing.
They definitely will.
You definitely will. So make sure you guys stay around for the ride. We're going to continue covering edge rushers this entire process, all of that. But yeah, Frankie, any parting words?
Not really. We got an exciting episode next week with a surprise but somewhat familiar guest. First guest on the Let's Talk Draft podcast. Hype in the chat. Hype in the chat. Who will it be? But yeah, nothing really too much outside of that. Frankie's Film on Twitter. Frankie's Film. The S is after the Frankie, and then it's a film. Frankie's Film NFL on TikTok. I write over at Mile High Report every week. I put out a Broncos film review article, and yeah, that's where you can find me. How about you, Joey?
Yeah, everybody, follow me at JR Drafts. I'm going to be posting little clips today. I haven't done that for a while, so I'm excited to do that. I'm going to be posting all the draft edge rusher stuff. Again, my favorite position to study ever. I love it. Yeah, find all my work at Mile High Sports. Follow me at JR Drafts. Make sure you're part in following all the Let's Talk Broncos social media, whether it be YouTube, Instagram, Twitter. We're part of all of it. But yes, until next time, guys,